Hi, welcome to the video. Today I will be talking mostly about the sled. I've got a little video to show you in a minute of a training session I did a little while ago of me overloading the sled. I'll explain that when I come to it. I just want to explain that I am not an expert at the sled, but I have been pushing one for well over a decade. In fact, I found this clip from 2011 of me, a much younger me, pushing a sled very enthusiastically up and down in an old dirty floor gym I used to go to. As you can see, it was a slightly different format sled. It's one of the triangle ones, and it's not overly weighted. I would just run it up and down to get my heart going, and I would do that most sessions. In fact, I still continue today to include the sled wherever I can. It is an unbelievably good exercise. There's no real cheating it. Once you've got a sled that's weighted, it will consume oxygen faster than you can take it in, which ultimately will lead to your demise sooner or later. But for the most part, it's a great way of elevating your heart and really giving your lungs a good test. At the moment, I sort of try and have a little bit each and every session. Either I start with it or finish with it, or if it's part of the particular WOD that I'm doing that day. But there's lots of little subtleties to it. Everything from what shoes you wear to whereabouts you hold it on the poles, to what sled you use. You could be using a tri-sled, you could be using one of the Hyrox sleds, you could be using one of the wider bison sleds, or you could be using one of the new more fangled mechanical sleds, the ones with wheels and magnets that just add resistance rather than you adding weight. There's obviously a few other variables to this, particularly at Hyrox, and it always comes up in the forums and stuff when people are talking about it. Pretty much the Hyrox setup will always feel slightly more than, say, a regular Astro and sled setup, and that is because of a few variables. For one, they don't use Astro, they use carpet, which provides a different layer of resistance anyway, and then there's all the other tiny micro variables such as humidity and the wear and tear on the sled, the wear and tear on the carpet, what's under the carpet, lots of things like that. But we won't go into all that. We're just going to stick to what's relevant, what things you can expect and what things you can do to make it better for yourself. One of the biggest questions surrounding the sled push is the footwear. So obviously you don't just select footwear for the sled because you are there for 8 runs, 8 exercises. So bear in mind, this has to be an all-round kind of shoe, something you are comfortable running in for probably 40 minutes or thereabouts. So it has to be a runner of some description. Now, having said that, you need to think about the fact that you are going to have to push a sled, you are going to have to do lunges, you are going to have to do burpees and all that sort of stuff. And the biggest piece of advice is how you tie your laces. Obviously tie them tight, that goes without saying, but there is the heel lock loop method, which involves using the additional if you can see there, it involves using the additional holes that are the highest to nearest your ankle. You pop the laces back down into the unused hole, make a little loop. There it is. Do the same on the other side. Make 2 little ears, and then all you do, make sure your tongue is flat against you, make sure this bit's all tight as well at this point, is you post the opposite lace through the opposite hole, boop, boop, boop. Ooh, not pulling tight until it's done on both sides, boop, 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 boop. And that is your heel lock. Okay, so what you do is then pull it up, it tightens it at the bit closest to your ankle and keeps this important heel in place. Okay, so then you just tie your laces like you would normally, blah 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 blah, make a loop, rabbit comes up the hole. Now there's a couple of other things to consider about the shoe choice. I'm going to do another video about shoes, so like and subscribe, come back, because I have an enormous amount of shoes and I'm going to put them all through tests at my gym and all the various exercises to see which work and which don't. But for right now, we're talking about the sleds. Obviously, choose a runner, choose something you're comfortable, tie your laces tight, sort the heel lock out. What else is there to consider? Two things in my mind. As a runner, that I've been able to have a few shoes and try a few shoes, but the first thing people might lust towards is the super shoe, right? The Nike Alpha and the Nike Vaporflies. I have an example of both. These are both super shoes, okay? These are designed to give you marginal gains when running on a flat road environment or a track. Now, at nearly 40mm stack height, there's a lot of sponge under you, okay? And they've got carbon plates in, which are desperately trying to straighten out. They also have quite a flimsy heel counter, which is a bit that hooks onto your heel. So one of two things is likely to happen. You're going to get shift in your foam, you're likely to slip out of your shoe, and you're probably going to break very expensive footwear. These have a very particular purpose, and Hyrox isn't really the place. In fact, when I was at Manchester at my first one, I saw someone in a set of these, the neon green versions of these, and he was the last man out of the Sled Push. Okay, so while they might give you a few extra seconds in your run, they're going to take away from elsewhere. Plus, thanks to Nike, these don't fit in rowing machine foot restraints. So if you also want to go wrong in the rower, choose these shoes. Anyway, the last thing to consider with your footwear is the grip. Okay, you don't need massive amounts of grip, but it helps certainly in the sleds to have some. Okay, other road shoes, here's a prime example. These are one of my favourite road shoes, okay? Love these shoes, absolutely fantastic. But they're slick, you know, they are the race car tyre of shoes. They are designed not to go off-road, they are not designed to go indoor, not really. These are designed to go in a straight line as fast as possible. You put them under tension like that, your foot is just going to slide across the carpet. You'll get across eventually, but it's not going to be very efficient. So finally, the sort of, well, which shoes do sort of satisfy the running component and the exercise component? I would say, there's two ways you can go with this. You can either go with sort of an event-specific shoe that's been developed for that sort of thing, and I think Puma have a few of those. Don't own any of those at the moment, but what I do have are low stack, moderate grip, sort of, well, these are Asics, but I wore these on my first event and I didn't get any problems at all. So I didn't even use the heel lock or anything. I didn't know about any of that really at that time, but it didn't fall off my foot or anything. The ones I used most recently at Birmingham were these. These are the Hoka Tecton X's. They have backwards and forwards tread to stop you falling off things when you're out and about. They're a bit dirty at the moment because they did Nuclear Races OCR most recently, so they are in much need of a clean. But these are obviously designed to run and to stick to stuff, so that's why I chose them. And I'm still figuring this out, and I'll probably choose a different shoe next time to see, you know, have a comparison of shoes in the actual event. So that's that. So let's get on with the video. Okay, so we're going to take a look at my overloading session. Now, as I previously explained, overloading is a really great way of testing yourself. In order to become stronger at something, we generally add an overload in just about all improvement scenarios. So we're talking, if you want to go further, you add more distance. If you want to go faster, you add more speed. If you want to get stronger, you add more weight. And once a month maybe, I try and run through this drill just to see where I'm at. I normally finish roughly at the same place when the stack is full, and I've done 10 or so runs. You know, you're about done at that. But it's a great little training method. It has you go up to the open weight for Hyrox. You find the rough resistance. It's not weight for weight. If I loaded this sled up to the same as the Hyrox weight, it would glide up and down super easy. So ultimately, by adding more plates, you eventually find the weight and resistance that is at Hyrox. Then you add more weight, and you probably go through the pro weight, and you add a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, until it's barely able to move. Another benefit of doing this is it tests your kit. It tests how you're going to hold the frame and stuff. It tests your shoes. It tests the grip. It tests the heel lock. It tests all of those things that we've talked about. So it's good practice. Plus, it makes you a weeny bit stronger every time you do it. So just think about it. Okay, so I'm gonna press play on my video, and I will go down to a little box in the corner. Okay, so here we go. Right, I'm gonna need this. Right, so I am pushing the Wolverson Bison sled. It is the largest sled in the sort of Wolverson range. It weighs 65 kilograms and is 77 centimeters wide. Now it does differ a little bit to the Hyrox sled, because that is only 70 centimeters wide and 40 kilos. So there is a very obvious difference when you come to hold the poles. Certainly on the wider one, you can't do that thing where you put your arms down by the side. You've got pretty much two choices at this point: arms by your sort of shoulders and push like this, or you push long armed and push like this. Now in both my Hyrox events, at the first one I went long armed. Don't know why. It's just how I'd pushed the sled previously. But then everyone around was, well, pretty much everyone around was doing it short. So I spent the time in between learning to do it the other way. Anyway, back to the video. We are now up to 165 kilos there. 185. It looks like I am cracking on. My concentration face. I would say it's not far around here where it's the Hyrox weight. I say the Hyrox weight, I mean the Hyrox resistance. Between that plate and this plate, that's roughly sort of my Hyrox speed. You notice how I am head down? That's quite a common thing to see at Hyrox as well. The lower you get, the more rugby, scrum, power position you become. In fact, I was at this gym and a rugby player said to me, get lower, get lower. So I went lower and lower. There is obviously a point where you get too low and your feet start slipping as a result of being lower down, but so it's a sweet spot, you have to find it. Can't count how many plates are on there, but there's quite a few. I think we're up to about 285 kilos on that push. You can see that I'm slowing down, I'm having to readjust my grip, I'm fatiguing. Still moving though, isn't it? And that's because of the resistance underneath the sled is quite free. And I think this is about the last run. I've got 12 20 kilo plates on top of a 65 kilo sled. And that makes it a 305 overall push after 12 separate pushes. You can see I am broken. But I enjoy that session. It takes a lot out of me. You are gassed at that point. And the reason you're gassed is because you are using the biggest muscles in your body. In fact, you're using your entire body, but the ones that are powering you along are your quads, your hams, your calves. Your entire core has to engage. Every single part of you is kind of tensed, and there's no way, even if you are breathing perfectly, to provide enough oxygen to your body for the entire amount of time. As a result of that, your heart has to increase to pump the oxygen around, and sooner or later you will get to a point where it's unmanageable, and that's what has you on your knees like I just was. But by doing that, you increase that tolerance a tiny bit each time. So I think we've covered most of it. I think we've covered footwear, we've covered sort of how you hold the position, sort of what position you get in and how you hold the frame. The only other thing really is to think about is the step count. Obviously the bigger people can use their body weight to push the thing. You know, a bigger fella, over 100 kilos, is going to find this whole thing much easier than someone who is 65 kilos. They're going to struggle. It's not to say they won't do it. You can overthink it. Everyone pushes these sleds, but the bigger guys will whiz through, and it won't bother them as much. Yeah, it does feel like a bit of a disadvantage. I'm a bit of a sort of a middleweight, I suppose you could call me. So I get it done, you know, 2 to 2.5 minutes, I think it was. I can't remember off the top of my head. It wasn't particularly fast. It wasn't particularly slow. So just get down, just keep breathing. At the end of each run, stand up, take 2 big deep breaths in, and get back onto the frame. The worst thing you can do really is to stop mid-run and stand up, put your hands on your hips, and breathe into the sky. I did that on my first go back at Manchester, and you're just burning time. Ultimately, if you're leaning into that weight, it will continue to move. Just keep those footsteps little and consistent. You will, before you know it, you've done your 4 laps and you're on your way to what is the sled pull, which is just awful after that. Anyway, I have gassed on long enough about this, so please like and subscribe below. I'm going to try and make a few more of these videos. I have finally started talking to camera rather than just uploading my OCR history, and I would really appreciate some support from the community, from you guys. It really means a lot. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon. For those competing in the foreseeable future, good luck. I will see some of you at Manchester. I will see some of you at Glasgow. Alright, Mart out. Thanks very much.